Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz, and I have a fun video for you today. We're going to do 3 quick emergency card layouts. I'm focusing on the emergency card essential dies that I designed for Trinity stamps, but if you don't have those, I'll give you measurements as best I can so you can use what's in your stash. The idea is to give you more ways to use all those free emergency card essential sentiments that I put out on the first and third Friday of every month. If you're new here, click on More or Show More beneath the video so you unpack the description box and you can get to the Emergency Card Kit playlist where all of these free printables are linked for you. So here is our layout for card number 1. We're going to use a rectangle sentiment for this one. We'll use each of the 3 main sizes in this video. There is a pop-up inside this card. All of these cards have a pop-up, but I'm not going to teach those today. I'll have another video next week where we just focus on 3 different ways to use the pop-up die that's in die set number 2. I have cut my basic pieces using the die sets because you can see that deboss detail it gives you right around the outside edge. It's so beautiful. But again, if you don't have the dies, they're just rectangles. So I'll walk you through sizing along the way. I have cut a piece of white shimmer cardstock with the smallest rectangle from that second die set. That's what this piece is right here. And I'm going to ink up the bottom of it. This piece is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and I've actually cut 2 of them. This first piece we're going to put on the front of our card, and then the second piece, same size, I'm going to ink going sort of the long way. That's going to go on the inside. I'm going to wrap it around a gift card. It is the perfect size to make a little sleeve and sort of decorate up a gift card. As I'm finishing my inking here, you can see that ink sits just a little heavier around that debossed line. And I just think it's so pretty. I am going to glue together the first 2 layers of my card front. So I have a red piece that's A2, it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then the light blue piece is 4 by 5 1/4. The red piece comes from set number 1 and the blue piece from set number 2. Then this white shimmer piece comes from set number 2 as well. I have hand cut a piece of matte silver cardstock that's 1/8 of an inch bigger. So it's going to be a smaller margin. It's going to be 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. I love that tiny little pop of shine. This card to me could be masculine, could be feminine. It's very like gender neutral. And even if I'm going to give it to one of the men in my life, I think that little bit of silver is going to be just perfect. For my focal image, I'm using the little tree gnome from Trinity Stamps. I colored him off camera. It is the perfect size stamp and die set, and the stamp and die come together. Sometimes when I take a stamp set out, I can get a little bit intimidated. Like if I'm going to get out one and I'm going to figure out what colors I need, I might as well color them all. And then 3 days later, I'm still coloring. So this is, to me, like a really accessible way to get like just a little bit of stamp and die for the holiday. But notice the size of him. You could put all kinds of stamps or dies or whatever you love to do in that spot, or you could just use pattern paper for that white shimmer layer. He's not huge. He's not filling the entire bottom, but I do love to have a spot for a focal image. You know me, I'm usually a die cutter and I like to glue together little die cut pieces, but that's not always it's something I can do. You guys know I just recently had foot surgery, and so it has been very difficult to get into the craft room. So I've been sitting on the couch doing this voiceover. So if the sound's a little different, sorry about that. That's what's going on. But I've also been doing some coloring because I can do it without having to go up the stairs and get to the craft room and do all those things. Because I know some of you are going to worry, I am taking it easy. I filmed this card maybe a month ago, month and a half ago before the die is ever released. I am taking it easy. I am adding some stars and unicorn sparkles. These come from Emergency Card Essentials number 2. And I'm just going to cascade them down the right-hand side of that card as a way to fill up the space and add a little extra something. But you could use gems here. You could use a silver or metallic pen and add your own little twinkle stars. You could just use a bigger focal image. I've been playing a ton with the critters from the last 2 large die of the months from Spellbinders and the small die. Actually, there's a turtle. There's like a little frog in a car. Those would all fit beautifully on here, or I could steal a couple of the icon pieces from the month before, right? There was a Santa and a penguin and all kinds of cute stuff. So put here whatever makes you happiest. This particular set of sentiments is just like all the other Emergency Card Essential sentiment printables, but this is exclusive to Emergency Card Essentials #2. You guys, I should have renamed them something shorter. We're going to use Noel with a G because there's a gnome. And I use the die to cut it out. The die and then that scallop rectangle come from set #1. But that finishes up the front panel of our card. You can adapt this layout for so many different supplies you already have. A quick look at the inside. There's that little pocket, and I've just tucked, well, it's a hotel key, but I would take that as a gift card, right? And we'll do that next week. So let's move on to card #2. This is the same layout with 3 different sentiment sizes. We're going to do the middle one, but I think I actually love the one on the right the most that has just a circle sentiment in the middle. Look at the Ninja Bread Men, and they like pop up on these little pieces of acetate. We'll do the pop up next week, but I love the sort of unique shape that we have here. This is such a quick and easy layout. I am going to stencil my pattern paper, but you certainly could use just purchased pattern paper. This is the Good Morning Sunshine stencil from Trinity. It's massive. I want to say it's 6x9. And I am just using a warm gray on this first layer. And then on the next layer, I will use black soot. But because I'm using my blending buddies, these are my favorite blending tools because they don't make my hands hurt. I am able to take the black soot. You guys be careful with your stencils. I don't know what I was thinking as I was making this, but I can layer this on top and use my blending buddy and black ink. You can see it's like fully inked, but I have so much control over the pressure and it's gonna look gray. Most of my gray inks look warm gray, and so I love this as a cool gray option. Anything I can do to sort of stretch my supplies and get more looks, I love that. While this stencil is huge and creates rays coming from the side or the bottom, there is another stencil catching some rays. It's like a 2 stencil set that has the rays coming out from the middle. I love just stenciling backgrounds when I'm feeling stuck or frustrated or like I've lost my creative mojo. Every time I go on vacation, I come back and I'm like, I don't know how I ever did this. And I know that's what it's going to feel like when I finally am like up and mobile and feeling better. I'm back in the craft room. And so I know I have plans to do a bunch of like stenciling and making some backgrounds. The dies I have cut here are from Emergency Card Essentials #2. I have 2 of the larger hexagon, and then I cut out my stamped image with the smaller hexagon, and I just pushed him sort of up and towards the top. I am going to add my little sentiment right onto the bottom. You guys, I know I'm stamping a sentiment. I don't do this very often. I usually use my printed sentiments, but it functions the same way in terms of the sketch. You could instead put a die cut something there and then a strip sentiment from one of the emergency card kits. Again, if you don't have the emergency card essentials dies, not a problem. Look in your stash. Look for your sort of nesting dies. Find something that you think is a little different, a little surprising. And then the rectangles here, you just want them to be proportionate to whatever size you've chosen for your shape. These hexagons worked perfectly for the size of my Ninja Bread Man. But if I was going to use the new Dancin Yeti die from Spellbinders, you guys, that's the first thing I'm playing with when I'm back in a craft room. If I was using that guy, I need a bigger shape. Okay. So then I would scale my rectangles to coordinate with that. If you don't have a lot of nesting dies, keep an eye out for Black Friday, right? It's basically started already for the big box stores, but the stamp companies wait. It will be like a whole week of Black Friday sales. I will be sending out updates through Patreon and to my email list, but I'll probably also have a video or 2 on my channel. I want you guys to be able to get the most for your crafty buck, and I am here to make it easier to shop. This guy is just getting popped up on a little foam. I have a drop shadow, right? I have a red hexagon and then the black one I dropped down and to the right. And that finishes up the front panel for the card. Here's one more look at the inside that we'll make next week. I hope you'll come back for that. It is So much fun. I can't even. I love it. Here's layout number 3, and we're going to make a little bit of a fun fold out of the front panel of this card. So this piece is going to pull out like a little mini card. You could skip the pop-up, and like this is a really fun, easy card. I want to show you one more example that doesn't have that fun fold on the front. I made this one for our hop at the beginning of the month, and it just uses one of the dies from Emergency Card Essentials #1 that has that diagonal cut that goes through it. So here again, I have an A2 panel that I cut from set #1 with that deboss detail. And then this piece was cut with that diagonal die. It will take a single piece and cut it into 2 coordinating pieces, or you could use a pair of scissors. But I like that I can use that same die on like 5 pieces of pattern paper and then mix and match my pieces for really quick and easy cards. I'm hoping to have a video showing you some of that in the next couple of weeks. Like before, I'm actually using solid colored cardstock instead of pattern paper, and I'm just going to ink blend the bottom. When I'm not sure, my go-tos are an embossing folder or a little bit of ink blending, and like keep it simple. I love Karen Burniston dies. If you're not familiar, she makes the most amazing pop-up dies ever, 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 ever. I know a lot of you are crafty letters, so you're probably familiar with her by now. What I have learned from her, well, one of many things, is that if you're going to go through all of the trouble to make a pop-up on the inside, because that's what I love, just keep the outside like a little sneak peek preview of the inside. You don't have to do anything super elaborate. They're going to leave it open anyway. So I have some extra little strips of pale purple cardstock. This is 100-pound cardstock, and then my little card that slides inside is 100-pound cardstock. So they're about the same thickness, and I am going around the outside edge and gluing those to create just a little bit of lift. It will help that card to slide in and out. You don't have to do this. You could just glue the edges to the card base, but I think this makes it a little smoother. Though, if I was doing this again, I would probably just use 1/4-inch strips. Like, I think that would work just fine and would be a little bit easier to manipulate and maneuver, but that's okay. I have these strips. I don't want them to go to waste. This is one of my favorite colors of cardstock. This is from Gina K. What does she call it? Oh, let me look it up. It's called Lovely Lavender, and I love it. It's actually this combination of that dark purple. That one is from Tailored Expressions. It's called Eggplant. And then the light blue is Confetti Cake, also from Tailored Expressions. And then this Lovely Lavender. And it just is my happy place. I want to make all the cards in this colorway all the time, especially as soon as it gets a little bit cold. So I am just centering this on my gray card panel. It's an A2 panel, and I'm leaving a tiny little bit of a gap on the left and right and on the bottom. If I was going to use the other piece from that diagonal cut die, it would have that same border on the sides and on the top. I have cut out my unicorn sparkles, and I'm going to add those right into the negative piece. I love that the negative gives me a layout, so I'm not sitting there trying to figure out where everything's going to go. I just added little dots of glue on the inside, or if it's a bigger piece, like a little cross of glue, and then the wax tip of my pickup tool is great for this. I'm moving fairly quickly because a couple of them are a little crooked. Does it matter? Only if you're real precious about it, and you know I am. So if I move quickly, the glue is still wet, and then I can sort of straighten them out and then press firmly down, and they're good to go. So here's my card, and I am going to slide that all the way inside. He's 3.5 by 4 3/4. I used the second rectangle die from set #2, but I want an equal margin on the top and on the 2 sides. So actually, I can't stick that all the way into the pocket and have him where I want him. So we're going to cheat. I'm lining up my sentiment mat, and then I have put the negative around it and taped it to the card. I added foam only to my white card that will slide in and out. And then I will put my sentiment mat right on top of that foam. And it acts as a stopper so that that card doesn't go too far into the pocket, and I get the margin that I wanted, even though the card isn't quite the size that I might want. I could have cut a longer card, but I liked the deboss detail around the edges, and also it was already cut. Our sentiment is coming from the exclusive printable that comes with die set number 1. You just scan the QR code on the back. Both of the die sets have their own unique set. This sentiment, I'd fight a bear for you, I made very specifically because I have a bear die from Trinity that I love so, so much. I like using the first page that has the circles printed on it. It's a 1 3/4 inch circle, and that black circle is printed ever so slightly larger than that. So I just wiggle my die until the black printed circle is just visible around the outside edge, and I know that it's centered and I don't have to worry about it. You would think by now I could center a sentiment and a die without the line, but I can't. It's like 50-50 at best. I do get a nice little deboss detail even on the sentiment when I use the die set, but any 1 3/4 inch punch or die will work. And I'm going to use removable adhesive to add that on there. I promise you, I am never going to change the sentiment on this card, but if I wanted to, I could. On the inside, here's our pop-up we'll make next week. I want to show you how to add a pop-up that isn't the one that is designed to go on the inside. We'll use the mechanism and then any old die cut you want. I'll teach you how to do that. My friends, I hope this inspires you to make some emergency cards with whatever supplies that you have. I hope you'll join me again next week to see how we're going to expand that pop-up. There's at least these 3 cards in the set, but maybe one more. Oh, maybe one more. I'm not sure. We don't have one in here that just uses, the mechanism as it's intended. So we'll see, maybe 4. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll see you next time.